familiar. I'm going to close it on my side.
Okay.
And if you can start your presentation with in a land far, far away in another galaxy.
Well, I think our hour's up now that we've gotten through all this. No. Thank you, Todd. Thank you so much for letting us talk about this. In many ways, it's like one of those fantastic dreams that fades over time, and you just want to hang on to it. And so, the more opportunities we have to talk about it, boy, we love them, you know. So let me go through a couple of things here. So for those that don't know, in the summer-ish of 2018, we loaded up on a boat, our family, Jen and I and our 5 daughters. We left Florida in March and arrived in New Zealand in November and December, first part of December. Yeah. So along the way, we covered a lot of ground, saw a lot of countries, and there was so much we could have spent years. And that's what a lot of people actually do. The path that we followed is called the Coconut Milk Run. And so these are our kids and their ages at the time we went. Mikkel is our oldest. She's on with us, joining us from BYU. A couple of the other girls are off on other commitments tonight. Brittany, Caitlin, Alyssa, and our youngest, Alexis. But if we can get them in here to tell some stories, we will. Otherwise, you're stuck with me and fortunately with Jen, because she knows how to tell much better stories than I did. So why did we do this? A lot of reasons. But first and foremost, we just wanted to have a family adventure, something that we could look back on and that our kids could grow from, and something that would impact them, all of us, our whole lives. And it was a massive undertaking. We're not rich people who can just take a year off and buy a huge boat and go. This took a lot of planning, a lot of coordinating, a lot of sacrifice, and if you ask us if it was worth it, man, we all shout up and jump up and down and say yes, yes, yes. When can we go again? You know. So we like I said, started in Florida and wound our way down through the Caribbean. This was our boat, Chasing Stars. It's a catamaran. We chose a catamaran because, well, there's 7 of us, and frankly, we need the space. And we had chartered a couple of times in the BVIs and had known of this boat, the model, and liked it. And the more I researched, it seemed like it was a standout design and very worthy of blue water crossings. So we named her Chasing Stars, and we were proud to have Salt Lake City as the hailing port on it, which a lot of people looked at us weird and said, "Isn't that landlocked?" And yes, it is. But you know, fodder for a lot of great conversations. And by the way, as you go here, feel free to shout out questions. So it looks like if I share my screen, I can't see that chat box anymore. We can't see it. So
I can make sure to watch it and answer any questions.
Okay, Mikkel's on it. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so like we talked about, we left out of Fort Lauderdale. We did that because that's where we found the boat. That's where we bought it. And quickly, you know, we looked for ways to rent a boat, trade places with somebody out there with a boat who might want to stay in our house. We tried a lot of different things, and in the end, there was no other solution than to buy it and then hopefully sell it at the end, which we did, and that worked out okay. So we came down to the Caribbean. We hit a couple of islands in the Bahamas, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Providence Island, which is part of Colombia, on the way down, and ended up in Panama. And I'll tell you, we could just spend forever talking about that thing alone, and maybe we'll have another time to do that. But where I want to really pick up our story tonight is after we've been through the Panama Canal, which was a great experience, and the San Blas Islands are amazing, and we go through the canal, and there we go, hold on. And we leave Panama, and this crossing to get to French Polynesia, which is down here where this little boat is, this is 4,000 nautical miles. It's a huge chunk of change. And there's one stop out here in the a fourth of the way in, the Galapagos Islands, which are part of Ecuador. And we stopped there. Not everyone does, because honestly, it's an administrative nightmare to stop there. It's very expensive. They had 7 inspectors come on our boats. They had a diver counting the number of barnacles on the bottom, you know, trying to be eco-friendly and keep out contaminants. They then make a big deal about what garbage you have in your garbage can when you arrive. It's really quite involved. But we had a great time, and we could talk a lot about that. But let's start instead. As we leave the Galapagos, and now we've got a 3,000-mile stretch of pure open water, and this is known commonly as the Pacific Puddle Jump. The folks that put out latitude 38 kind of organize a couple of things. One is the Baja Ha Ha Ha, right, which comes down the west coast of California and Mexico. But they also organize this Pacific Puddle Jump where you can register your boat for free. You just tell them who you are and the boat name and where you're from and approximately when you're going to leave. And they kind of help keep track of everybody. It's a nice thing. If you go to pacificpuddlejump.com, search on that, you'll be able to look and see, and you can go back through the years and see all the boats that have made this crossing. And it's interesting to see the different boats that people have chosen to do this in. I mean, along our way, how many different boats did we see of all makes and shapes and sizes, you know? Cargo. We saw families, we saw solo sailors, which just blew us out of the water, you know? In fact, remember the 80-year-old German lady?
Yeah.
In Vanuatu?
Yeah.
Solo sailing. Unbelievable. Anyway, and lots of couples and whatever, but in all kinds of boats from 30, I think the smallest I saw was 32 feet on up to mega huge, you know. But from the Galapagos, you kind of leave in waves, and it's very loosely organized. Everybody's kind of watching the weather forecast and looking for the next weather window to launch out from. And of course, you can only see a couple of days of weather into the future, and you've got 3 weeks ahead of you. But still, we left with 17 other boats. I think one boat sort of volunteered to be the head coordinating boat, and I think we called ourselves the Tiki Fleet, was it? And as we all left, and you kind of stagger the leaving, you know, I think we were kind of on the tail end of the group leaving. Some had left the day before, and some in the morning. I think we left in the afternoon of the second day. Pretty quickly, you don't see anybody anymore, and you're all spread out. And the only way you know that anybody else in the world even exists is we all had these Iridium Go little satellite things. which have kind of taken the place of single sideband out there in the world. We didn't meet anyone that's using single sideband radios anymore. They've all got these satellite things, and as soon as Elon Musk gets his Starlink thing up with internet, that's going to be a huge game changer. But for us, at the very least, we had email and we had texting, and that was and we had the ability to check the weather through Predict Wind. That gave us several weather models to look at and kind of coordinate and make decisions on. But as we would get going, we're going day and night. We always laugh when someone says, "Well, where did you anchor down at night?" And we're in 9 miles of ocean. There's no putting the anchor down, right? And so we adopted a 3 hours on, 6 off strategy, which I felt worked pretty well for us, right? And some of you were saying, "Well, hey, Chris, that doesn't give you the 8 hours of beauty sleep that you desperately need," right? And you're right. A typical scenario might look like I'm on from 9 p.m. till midnight, those 3 hours, and then someone else takes over, and I go down and I go to sleep, and at 5:55, right, my alarm goes off, and take a quick little shower and run up, and I'm on again for 3 hours. And during those 3 hours, being on watch doesn't mean you have to sit there and concentrate solely, steadfastly on the horizon and not look at anything else. It's a matter of checking the instruments. It's a matter of looking for obvious weird things out there, looking at the weather. And our strategy, which is a very common one, was at least every 15 minutes you need to check the instruments, you need to check sails, you need to check for any weird sounds coming from anywhere. Take a peek in the bilges if there's any water coming in. And the 3 hours goes by pretty quickly, typically. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Jen and I each took shifts, and sometimes some of the younger girls would pair up with us, not always. But Nicole and Brinley, our two oldest, they would do a shift. And so, like I said, at 6 a.m. I would come back on. You're on till 9 a.m. And at that point, you could either go back and maybe catch a couple of hours sleep or whatever, and you've got a good 3 or 4 hours to dink around before you're on again. So following this, and we followed this strategy our full nearly 10-month trip, and we always arrived feeling pretty good. We watched some couples arriving at an anchorage that after a passage of 3 or 5 or a week, 7 days, and they're just half dead, dragging in, and you can tell that they're so sleep deprived and just hating it. And we feel like one of the things we did well was this watch rotation.
Yeah. We were ready to hop off and go exploring as soon as we anchored and got to the business of anchoring or docking or whatever it was. We were ready to explore and get to the business of whatever island we were there, whether it was remote or in the hopping city of Tahiti. We were ready to do what was offered there. So the rotations were perfect for us.
Yeah. So a lot of people ask, what did we do for those? It took us 20 days to cross, to make that big puddle jump. Nicole, what are some of the things that you remember doing?
Yeah, I just answered a question about this in the chat.
Oh, okay.
But I said we definitely, I read a lot. I usually took my time on watch to do my homework. I do that a lot. I think I had better situation because I was on watch with someone else, so that definitely made it a lot easier. Me and Brinley just hung out and played games, and we just talked a lot. So I think that was definitely a good thing. But yeah, I don't know. You just kind of did whatever, I guess. Yeah, just read and played games and stuff.
I'm just gonna address one more thing about the puddle jump. One of the things that we read consistently was stick to a schedule on your long passages, whether that was 6 days. And Chris, I think your counting is wrong. We meant to make it in 20 days, but it was actually 21.
We meant to make it 19.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so we stuck to a schedule, or else you get what's called the doldrums, which I'm sure you're all familiar with that term, and you get kind of, I mean, some sailors can, for long passages, can kind of really lose track of time, or really get into a slump. And everyone's familiar with that during this pandemic right now. They really advise stick to a schedule, and that is exactly what we did. The rotations really helped us stick to that schedule. We ate dinner pretty much at the same time every evening, and that was family time where we came together. We had cleanup crew jobs at that same time right after dinner. We read some things at that time at dinner. Other meals were maybe a little bit looser in terms of the exact time that we ate, but we did eat those meals together and cleaned up together. And then we had school hours that we stuck to, some free time that we stuck to, game times that we would stick to, and just kept that watch rotation as sort of a running guide for that. Flying fish and other fish sort of ended up on our boat. They just sort of jumped up, and we used that as marine biology class, which was kind of a fun experience. So we stuck to a schedule on those, especially on those 20 days, but even on like a 6 or 8 day passage, we would do the same thing, because if not, you kind of go a little crazy, for lack of a better term. So you ever get the opportunity to do this, that is our best advice, is to set a schedule and then stick to it. That doesn't mean that you're working 8 hours out of your day, but you are sticking to some type of a schedule. So that would be our advice.
Yeah. Like I said, coming out of the Galapagos, we were in a loose fleet configuration with 17 other boats, and every night, what was it, by 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And we all kept the same ship's clock, with consistent with Galapagos time. We would email quickly up to that boat that had volunteered to be the coordinator, kind of anything was going on, our position, the winds that we were experiencing, any fun, interesting things that had happened. Caught a fish, lost our 8th fish in a row off the line. It's kind of our story. Fun games that are going on. Anyway, all the boats would sort of email this, and then he would email it all back to everybody. And so it was really nice to be able to read and see what other people were doing and where they were, and how it was working out. And if anyone had a problem, which no one in our fleet did, it was nice to know that people were never more than several hours, at most a day away, to help with anything. And even though we never saw another soul until
a day out,
less than that, a couple of hours from the island, from the Marquesas. Finally, we saw another boat. You're just up there and watching. You just look, a pure circle of water around the horizon, and at one point we realized that we were about as far from land as you can physically be on this planet. Pretty darn close. And that's a very sobering thought, right? And you feel very small. But then you remember, what? All I've got to manage is this horizon. This 5 or 6 or 8 miles, and it actually became very cool. I don't think I was the only one that was a little bit sad when these 20 days was up. In fact, I'm getting emotional about it right now. It was such a unique, special family time. I will forever put that down as a highlight of our lives. that time, that crossing. Sorry, I'm a
that's
total baby here. But yeah, we fished, we read poetry, we had lots of games. We took lots of video, and unfortunately, the video comes across choppy on Zoom here, so I'm not sharing a lot of it. But we really had a lot of fun, and the days, at least for me, and I don't think it ever dragged too much. I mean, there were moments when we were bored, but you find something to do, and for me, there was always something to fix on the boat, so I was always busy, you know. So anyway, we make it across this big puddle jump. If anybody has a question about this, just feel free to holler out and interrupt us. But yeah, we arrive in the Marquesas Islands, which are absolutely glorious. I love the Marquesas. They are so unique and fun. They're rugged, they're green and jungly, rising up out of the sea, you know, pretty majestic, and lots of great anchorages and these people that are just so friendly, and it's really amazing because there aren't that many islanders in the Marquesas. Pretty small little villages and towns, if you want to call it that, and they get this influx of several hundred boats that make this trek every year in a normal year and come across, and I'm sure that many of them are like, oh my gosh, more people coming in boats and invading our beaches and our towns and whatever. But I'll tell you what, everyone we met was super friendly, you know, so nice, and you felt just for a moment that like you had discovered this world and it was yours, you know. Just so amazing. And the Marquesas, they don't have an airport. The only way to get there is by boat.
Oh, no, there is one small airport.
Well, that's in Whakarava.
Nukuhiva has one.
Oh, Nuki. Oh, you're right. Nukuhiva has one. Never mind. But you're not going to get a big commercial flight there, you know. What does come around is this thing, which the first time I saw it, I'm like, what is that? And it's a half cruise ship and a half cargo thing. And it just makes these rounds to all the islands. And in the Marquesas, there are 12 islands that make up that group. And this thing pulls in the night, and I kid you not, the whole island comes down to the dock at 6 in the morning, and everybody's standing there, you know, waiting for their little package or the thing they ordered 9 weeks ago.
Well, food.
Food, you know, this is the supply line for the islands, you know, and everybody's all excited. And it was kind of a fun little ritual once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever it happened to be for that particular island, that everybody comes down, and it's this amazing little event. And half the time what you ordered didn't come, or if it did come, it was only half there or the wrong size or whatever. But you quickly understood that that's just island life, and that's just what they expect, you know. And for those of us that had some boat repairs and needed some parts, it was next to maddening. But pretty quickly you just realize there's no option, and we realized that we were glad for the spares that we had brought and the things that we had prepared beforehand. At this point in our trip, we were having some serious issues with our batteries, which were almost completely dead. So we were running our little generator a lot. And so I was hoping we could buy some batteries in the Marquesas. No way, unless we wanted to stay there 6 weeks and hope for the ship to bring them, you know. So anyway, but super great people, so interesting. Not really that far removed from cannibalism. And these are the folks that tattoo their bodies with the art of their lives. You know, Disney, Moana, Maui, all this is where it comes from, the Marquesan culture. Just fascinating people, and they have tiki sculptures everywhere. We hiked all through the jungles and found so many, and they're just really interesting and fascinating. It was so great for the kids to see people that are so different from the way we live. Um, we made friends with other boaters, cruisers in Panama before going through the canal. We saw some of those same people and made new friends in the Galapagos. And then coming across, we had some of those same friends and made new friends. And I mean, how easy is it to make friends with cruisers?
Within 5 seconds, you have a boat full of friends. It takes no time at all.
The cruising community is so cool. It's one of my favorite parts of our voyage too. I have way too many favorite parts, but just the fact that there's like this instant, almost lifelong bond with every other boater you meet, no matter where they came from. I mean, we had people from all over the world. In fact, Americans were the minority.
Very much so. We only met 2 other Americans our whole voyage, maybe 3. The
Yeah.
rest are from all other countries that we're still in touch with, thankfully.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And hilariously, some of them were from Park City and here in Salt Lake.
Yes.
Very small world. But here we're in this picture. We're having one of our how many 100 beach bonfires with friends from Australia and
New Zealand
New
and
Zealand,
Denmark and
Denmark.
Switzerland. Yeah.
I mean, we've got an octopus on a stick right here. We've got snarlers, which is the Kiwi word for sausages, going on here.
And then we have bread on sticks, which is a Danish tradition. They used to burn witches, like in the 1500s. I know that sounds terrible. And our Danish friend Stina was like, this is a fun tradition. This bread is so easy. You just wrap it around your sticks and roast it on your bonfires. And that's what we did. It was really fun for the kids. And you don't see this in this picture. I don't think we had cameras rolling, but our friend Sarah from New Zealand, I mean, we have probably 12 to 15 kids here. We had this surfing day and then this bonfire. And then we had there was this old rope out by closer to the beach. And the dads and the kids had a huge tug of war with that. It was a huge hike over to the other side of this island where we are. And she just turns around and says, "Who wants to be in school today?" Because this was just we were just living life at its fullness on this day, that learning skills and having so much fun and learning other people's countries' traditions. That this is the life of school. So
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
Sorry, real fast, I'm going to interrupt you because someone asked a question in the chat, and I think that you should answer this. They said, how much training would you need in order to do a trip like this?
So the first time I ever heard about this coconut milk run was, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. I read about it, and my immediate thought was, man, that's way beyond my whatever level. I'll never do that. That sounds cool, but it was something I would never do. So I don't know how many of you know or remember Martin Fry, who did this same trip with his family, his wife and his daughter, who is severely disabled. And in talking with him and seeing, and I got the opportunity to go crew on his boat in the Caribbean, and that was pivotal, and I'll talk about that more in a second here. But talking with him and seeing, understanding all the challenges they had to overcome with their family, it suddenly clicked for me. This is very doable. Like, ordinary people can do this. And what do you need? You do need some open ocean time to get comfortable. And fortunately, Martin had a boat that he was trying to move around the Caribbean a little bit and up and down the East Coast, and I was fortunate to be able to crew on it several times. And the more I did that, the more I felt comfortable, and the more I understood some of the challenges that would be faced with. And I talked a lot with him about his experience. And so what do you need? You need to get on a boat, and there are lots and lots and lots of ways to do that. There's a website called Crew Finder, where you can just go out there and people say, hey, I'm looking for crew to go from Tonga to New Zealand, and I'm looking for crew to go from
New York to
yeah,
North
Bermuda.
Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just sign up, and some of them you have to pay your way, and some of them pay you, and some of them it's just, you know, no money. It's just they need a body to help with watches. But if you know, that's an easy way to get yourself on a boat and get even some experience a few days at a time. And so I was able to crew on Martin's boat probably 4-ish times over 2 years, and by then I felt like, okay, we can do this. And so then the challenge became finding the boat, and I guess we could back up for a second here and talk more about everything that was required to put this trip together.
Or we can keep going.
You know, renting out our house and figuring out the homeschool and figuring out my work and how I was going to keep in touch and do that, and who was going to care for the dog and all this kind of stuff. So then when it came down to Jen and I made the decision, hey, we're going to do this. Then we got to find a boat, right? And we knew our Catalina 25 on the lake wasn't going to do it. So we looked all over the place. And like I said, I really didn't want to have to buy a boat because we're not rich. And we looked at lots of other options, but ultimately it came down to, we found one in Florida that we could handle. And what we did was, we bought it, we put it into a charter company down there, which helped offset some of the cost. And then I could go down, I could fly to Fort Lauderdale back and forth to Salt Lake a million times, and we would take the boat out and do little shakedown cruises over the Bahamas or down to the Keys, and sort of try and figure out all the things of this boat and what we would need to make it blue water safe, you know, water makers and the right sails and whatever. And if you want to know more about that, we can have an endless discussion of that too, which I'd love to have. But anyway, so how much experience do you need? You need some, but honestly, you don't need tons and tons, because while ocean sailing can be scary and you can have big winds and big waves, most of it's not like that. Most of that can be avoided. And honestly, the coconut milk run is named that way for a reason. You're following the easterly trade winds. You set the Genoa in the Galapagos, and you don't even touch it until you reach the Marquesas hardly. You know, I mean, the wind is just constant, nice 15, 16 knot breeze. The seas were very friendly for us. We didn't hear of boats having many issues at all. That stretch of ocean is outside of the hurricane zone. Typically, it's a very, very rare storm that makes its way that far east. They spawn over towards by Fiji, and they typically head kind of south and whatever. So there's very little chance of that. And of course, this trip that we did, and all these boats were moving in coordination with the hurricane seasons. So we leave out of Panama in the early part of the year, January, February, March, April, you know. We left April 1st out of Panama, I think, and so we had great weather the whole way, you know. That was a very long-winded explanation, wasn't it?
Okay, yeah, so let's we'll save this anchoring in the dark story for another time. Let's move on to the next slide.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh.
It's a great story.
We have a thriller of a story. We always said, hey, one of our cardinal rules is we will never be moving around near an island in the dark.
And guess what we did? We
And-
moved around an island in the dark, and it worked out well. But we're gonna have to save that story and the details of it for another
All
time.
right, fine, let's skip it. But sometimes you find yourself in weird situations and you just make for it. One of the cool experiences we had in the Marquesas on the island of Wapu was meeting Manfred the chocolate man. Mikkel, you want to talk about him?
Yes. I'm definitely not as good as telling stories as you, but I will try my best. So, yeah, the Chocolate Man was kind of the highlight of this one island. So we were very excited to go to him. And so some background for him, he is from Germany and he went over to this island after World War II. And he like built his own house and he started his own garden and he like has all these animals that you can see in this picture. And it's all the way up at the very top of this mountain on this island. So, but he's known for making like really good chocolate. So one day we were like, we're gonna go see the Chocolate Man. So we started the hike up the mountain. And I was talking to my dad earlier, and he was like, I think it was like a 1.5 kilometer hike. But honestly, I think it might have been longer now that I'm thinking. I don't remember exactly how long it is.
Jen saying 4.
4? Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe it just felt that long. However long it was straight up like the side of this mountain. So it was really hard. But you like hike all the way to the top of this mountain and then you get to the top and there's just like this little sign. I can't remember exactly what it said. Did it say like the Chocolate Man or maybe it said his name? Or
Yeah,
it's
it's
just like
Manfred the Chocolate Man.
yeah. And so and then you're like, yay. And then the kids were especially excited about this part because right next to the sign, there's a little like pot and then like a spoon. And so you bang on the pot and he like comes out of his house and he comes down. And I don't know, I guess for like being this guy that lives all by himself on top of the mountain, he's so nice. He just welcomed us right into his house and he gave us a tour of like his whole garden. He was like, here's where I grow, the chocolate. Here's where I grow the star fruit that I put in it. And here's where I grow this other stuff that I put in it. And it was just really cool to see, like, literally, he was like, this is where I grow everything. Over here, this is how I make it. Like, he brought us into his kitchen and he let us, like, taste a bunch. And it was just really cool to see, like, how he was doing this, I don't know, just all by himself at the top of this mountain. So, yeah, the hike was very hard and it was very long, and especially with a bunch of kids, I think that made it, all the more fun. But it was 100% worth it, and the chocolate was really good.
There you go. Yeah, I guess a lot of people make that trek. He's had write-ups in magazines and things. He's semi-known for it. Anyway, in the Marquesas was the first time I ever saw a manta ray, and it just about blew me out of the water how enormous these things are and how graceful and just super, super cool. So leaving the Marquesas, so French Polynesia is made up of 5 island groups. The most northeast group is the Marquesas. Dropping south and slightly west, you come to the Tuamotus. The Tuamotus are atolls, which means the island has eroded down and disappeared and left only a fringe reef. You see pictures of that sometimes, right? And so they have a totally different look and flavor from the Marquesas. This is a very typical stretch. I mean, these things are only a couple of feet above sea level, and it's a ring around, and the inside lagoon might be a mile across, or it might be much smaller, just depends, of all sizes. And the this is the Tuamotus gave us probably one of our toughest tests when it comes to seamanship. These island rings have little breaks in them every once in a while, and it's through these passes that an enormous amount of tidal water is flowing in and out of these rings. Water comes over the reef as well, and so the inside lagoon is always overpressurized. So water is always trying to exit out these passes, but then you'll have the natural tide rhythm and water flowing up, and so at the passes, very frequently you have standing waves, which I'd never experienced before or seen. And it's just what it sounds like. It's a wave that is staying in place, and it can be 4, 5, 6 feet high, and you go over it and the next standing wave is right there, and the period between these waves is very, very short. So you're kind of hobby horsing through this pass, and it might be 100 yards long, and it's throwing the boats around, and it's very, very hard. And so the smart, prudent sailor stands by until slack tide, you know, when the tide's not flowing as much, and then it's easy to go in and out. The problem, of course, is that sometimes you're fighting daylight, or you've got to go through the pass in order to make your next anchorage before dark. And so you have to negotiate these passes, and there's big whirlpool kind of things, you know, and it's, I watched our depth meter the first time we came into the pass in Fakarava, and we were up 75 feet, and then suddenly we were down reading 15 feet. And I'll tell you, my heart is just pounding, right? And then we're back up and we're down, and boom, 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 but then we get in. And and a bunch of boats are doing this, and so you kind of all lined up out the lagoon, and you're talking by radio and like, how are we gonna do this? And are we gonna wait? And I'm gonna wait. Well, I gotta go for it. Okay, you're gonna go for it. And and it was a real test. And in fact, one of the things about the Marquesas that we found, which is just a pure treasure from heaven, are these grapefruits called pamplemousse, and they were like our most favorite thing in the world to eat. And you can only get them in the Marquesas. So boats would load up with these things, and the islanders were so great in giving us tons of them. But I watched a boat ahead of us going through a pass, and it was getting kind of bounced and jostled, and they had a whole big net full of these pamplemousse in their back, and it broke away, and 15 or 18 pamplemousses just fell overboard and went the way of things. And I almost cried for them. They, you know, they were so sad. Anyway, so we became better sailors as we learned to negotiate these passes. And once you get in the lagoon, then you've got to worry about coral formations, bommies as they're called, and you've got to negotiate those. And the charts are not always very good. In fact, more often than not good. So you got to use your eyes, and you got to have some people out on the bow looking, you know, at all times. So so in the Tuamotus, we visited 3. The main island is Fakarava, where we did some amazing diving. What kind of stuff did we see on that dive, guys?
Sharks, sharks, and more sharks, and huge. The biggest manta rays I've ever seen, like Chris already said.
Yeah.
Eels, some pretty angry looking eels. I don't even know. I so many fish. I've never seen so many fish. Fakarava is very known for diving, and so many of the divers that were there with us came just specifically for the diving.
Yeah. It does have an airport.
Yeah.
Anything you remember, Nicole, you want to add? That was one of your first dives, right? Your second dive ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of, well, I don't know. I think it was really awesome because everyone was like, yeah, this dive is like the best in the world. So it's like very exciting. But I mean, yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. We just saw like
Yeah.
so many things, and you just didn't even have to move. And there was just so much, you know, you could just spin around again and again and see so many different animals.
Yeah. And this is where we learned the difference between a shark with a big S and a shark with a little s. And in this particular place, every year, every spring, the first full moon in March or something, all the grouper in the whole wide ocean come there to spawn, and so in come all these reef sharks, black tips and white tips and whatever. And we got to see just thousands of these things everywhere, and you quickly came to realize they don't care about us. They're, you know, we're not harm to them, and they're not to us. And
Unless you bleed. I wouldn't
Well,
recommend to go in with a
yeah,
cut,
don't
but yeah, otherwise they don't really care about you.
tempt fate. But yeah, I mean, it was really amazing to be able to swim with sharks right there. you
Yeah.
know, and understand kind of how the ecosystem in the ocean is actually working. It was really amazing. And so our two oldest certified open water, basic open water before we left, and we did that on purpose. Took a class here in town, did their dives up at the Midway Crater, and that was so glad we did that. Otherwise, we saw tons of stingrays, and these are nurse sharks down here that had become basically domesticated. They'll come right up, you can pet them, you know.
Carefully.
Yeah. But anyway, just really, really unique experiences that you'll never have anywhere
This
else in the
picture
world.
right here that Chris is pointing to is right off. If you just took the camera and just pointed a little bit more towards the bottom of the screen, those are my toes. You'll see my toes right off the back of my boat.
Those are right here.
Yeah. I'm just throwing out the last of just a teeny bit of spaghetti, and here come the sharks.
And like I said, we did get to where we could recognize a reef shark versus something that you don't want to mess with, like a bull shark or a mako or one of these. So anyway, okay, so we made our way down to the Tuamotus. Tons more to share there, but then you come to Tahiti, which launches the Society Island chain, and these islands are kind of a cross between the big, majestic, green, mountainous, jungly things in the Marquesas and the atolls of the Tuamotus. So you'll have a big mountainous island with a ring outside of it, you know, fringe reef. And so that was kind of a really cool thing to kind of see the evolution of island geology and history. But you'd come in a pass, and then you could navigate around the lagoon inside. And this is Bora Bora. This is the backside of Bora Bora. I say the backside. You would enter in the far side of the island. But finally in Tahiti, in Papaete, we could buy batteries for our boat. We could get fishing tackle. We could get.
We found a real grocery store that was bigger than a bedroom.
Yeah, since Panama, there's nothing between Panama and this Papaete for supplying things. So as you plan your voyage, and we can talk a lot more about that, you need to be able to have the resources you need to get from A to B there, Panama to Tahiti. Super colorful, great, fun things. While we were there, there was a festival, a dance festival going on called La Heva. You remember that, Nicole?
Yes.
Nicole doesn't remember. Okay.
Sorry. No, yes, I do. It's very, yeah, it was super cool. And I don't know if you want me to like talk about that, but I just thought it was really amazing, and you got to like get a really good sense for like their culture.
Yeah. This is a dance competition for islands from the whole South Pacific, Samoa and Fiji and all these islands. They send dance teams, and they come in and they're telling these elaborate stories through dance and hula, and they have their instruments, and it was just really, really super cool. And at that same time, there was also a big inter-island rowing competition. The Va's are the outrigger canoes, and so all these guys with, you know, and girls with muscles bigger than me, you know, and there aren't, you know, are out there just rowing and going crazy, and it was super fun to have all that going on around us. But beautiful, beautiful people. I just love the Polynesian cultures. Everything we met. The French kind of many decades ago were trying to eradicate the native cultures, and they almost succeeded. And then somebody said, hey, wait a minute, we got to preserve these. And so they've done a 180, and they're now teaching Tahitian in the schools, and they're teaching these natural what am I saying? Yeah, the native cultural things, right? I'm doing way too much talking.
No, go.
All
You
right,
got
I'm
it.
going. Okay. But in the Society Islands, Tahiti is the biggest one. Moorea is a popular destination. Hey, Mike, you chartered through here, didn't you? At some point?
Yeah. We were up by we didn't go down to Moorea, but we were up by Bora Bora and Taha'a and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, feel free to jump in if you have anything, you know, that I'm saying wrong or whatever. But super cool islands. In Huahine, we we were able to visit the wreck of a boat, our same boat, same model, of a family just like ours, who the year prior had run themselves onto a reef in the middle of the night. Tanda Malaika was the name of the boat, and they had to be airlifted off, and it was a whole big thing. And that was a family that I was watching closely before we left, because I was thinking, okay, we're going to model ourselves after these guys. But then they wrecked, and so we didn't model ourselves after that anymore. But it was a very sobering reminder that you got to pay attention, and that moving around at night is a bad idea. And they were going way too fast, way too close to islands at night. Like a friend of ours said, if you're in anything less than 1,000 feet of water anywhere near land, you're in immediate danger, you know, because these reefs just come up so fast. So anyway, that was a real interesting thing to watch and see. But met great, fantastic people in Huahine. Andy is still great friend of ours. And so you move up through Raiatea and Taha'a, and remember the drunk fire dancer?
Oh, yeah.
Tell that story real quick, please.
Oh, where were we?
We were in Taha'a.
Yeah. And we were anchored right near kind of a quiet island. And he says, hey, this is my island here, this little section. And it's my birthday, and I'd like to invite you. So me, our family, and 3 other families went and attended his birthday party. And we had a big cookout around a bonfire, not an unusual thing for us to do. And they had a lot. The birthday boy had a lot to drink, but he was also training to become a fire dancer. So after he had a lot to drink, he got his fire sticks going, and he started to dance with them. But at some point, he unfortunately lost a little control of his fire sticks and threw one, and unfortunately it went right between me and Alyssa and caught us a little warm. We put the fire out between us, but then it bounced away from us and went right into where he kept his kerosene. I mean, this could have burned down like his whole island, but fortunately he went chasing right after it and put that out and doused them. But anyway, it was a little bit more than we bargained for, but it was fun. I mean, it was just fun. It was a fun. These are things and experiences that most people pay for a lot of money. I mean, we got this free fire dance. We petted sharks for free. We, you know, just fun things, and met such great people.
Just everywhere you went, there was some adventure to be had. This is the girls and Jen jumping off a bridge down into a river below. Oh, what?
In
20,
who, yeah.
25 feet and looking at
Yes, and I've decided that is my last bridge jump. I it took me forever to get my courage up, and then my back hurt all the way till Raiatea.
Well, anyway, so you move onward and eventually you come to Bora Bora, and everybody says the same thing, that Bora Bora just isn't what it used to be, this quaint little thing. It's now way too touristy. But even so, it was super
Yeah.
fun. And
We
nice,
loved it.
and
As a cruiser, we loved it. It was just fine.
we had a local take us up on top of the mountain, and there are these gun turrets left over from World War II, and and they were teaching us this song about Bora Bora. I can't remember it anymore. I should have memorized that one. But so many great memories, and the water just crystal clear and blue, and it's so fun. The backside of Bora Bora. How do I get back to that? That picture. The water gets real skinny there. So yeah, right here. Oop. As you come around from this side of the island, you're following a channel, and you're dodging coral bommies, and they don't line up with anything you've seen on the charts. So you're all sitting there trying to figure it out, and the water starts to get real tight. And we had some friends in a performance cruising boat. It had like a 9-foot draft, I think. And Mikhail, you went with
Andre.
You went with Andre to with our little portable depth finder, right? To try and find a path.
And there was none.
How did that go?
Yeah, we like took his dinghy out and we just like go a couple feet and I'd stick the depth meter down and I'd be like, okay, it's like 10.5, and he's like, okay, we can do that. And then we go and be like, okay, it's getting shallower, and he's like, maybe we can make this work. And it was just really, and we were just literally trying to find like where he could barely get through. Like it was so close.
Because we all wanted to get to this little anchorage right down the south end. It was so beautiful. So anyway, the boats that were with us, they all ended up just anchoring here, dropping the hook and jumping on ours, because we only we only drew what, 4.5 feet. So we took everybody down, and I think the kids saw this fleet of like 30 spotted
Stingrays.
yeah, rays. Thank you. Spotted rays. Anyway, had a fantastic time. Anyway, and it, once again, we were grateful that we had a catamaran. But anyway, so from Bora Bora, we moved on across the South Pacific to the Cook Islands and Tonga and Fiji, and we should spend a lot of time talking about those sometime. But this is kind of the section that we should probably cover tonight. There's one thing that I'd forgotten to mention that I wanted to. Oh, remember in Fakarava, so we were able to mostly avoid all bad weather, right? The weather software we had was really good and gave us different models for predicting, and this is what 90% of our conversations with other cruisers were always about, right? Like, what's wrong on your boat? What needs to be fixed? And what's going on with the weather? And at one point, we're all looking at our predict wind screens, and we're all noticing that there's big winds coming in, 2 days or the next day or something. And we're in the Tuamotus here, and there's not a lot of cover, not the nice deep protected anchorages that we had in the Marquesas. So we're all saying, okay, what are we going to do? And we realized there was one anchorage in the kind of the southeast corner of Fakarava where we would have the most protection. So the problem was where we were to get to over there, it was totally uncharted. There were no charts of that part of the lagoon. So Mikkel, we stuck you out on the bow there, and you, Jen, right? And we had a procession of what, 6 boats, maybe?
Oh, no, I think just 3, wasn't it? Just the Rogies and,
It was Monkey Island. And
oh, yeah, I guess there
anyway, a
was.
lot. and we, since we had the shallowest draft, we kind of led the parade with going very slowly, all of us, with lookouts on the bow saying, oh, okay, go left, and go right. You remember that, Nicole? How long were you out there on the bow? And then it started to rain, right?
Yeah, sorry, my roommate's talking over there. So sorry if you can hear both of us. But yeah, I was out there for probably like 2.5 hours and it's like pouring rain. And I'm like, I mean, not to sound like, oh, it was all up to me, but like we're leading this thing. So he's like, so my dad's like, if there's anything that someone's gonna crash into, like you need to let us know. So I'm like, oh my gosh. But like, I don't know. It ended up working out really good. We kind of were just like dancing in the rain, and it was definitely an experience that we'll never forget.
Yeah. The things I saw our kids do and the situations they dealt with and the challenges they faced up to, I can't tell you how great that makes me feel, looking back and the things that I know that they've gained through this experience. So we made it to this little anchorage, and pretty soon every other boat in Fakarava tried to pack in there too. And we rode out the storm just fine. It didn't end up being that bad. It was a good chance for us to really work on different anchoring techniques and talk to other boaters, and everybody was kind of trying to figure that out. And then we went ashore and had Lexi's birthday party, right? And I think we watched some World Cup soccer on the only TV on the whole island, in somebody's house. Anyway, super fun. And yeah, so I think that's where we're gonna go. What? I'll stop sharing. I think that's where we're gonna end it here. Look at all that chat stuff. Any questions or things that
Yeah, lots. Was your catamaran equipped with an autopiloting device? Oh my goodness, yes.
yeah, although Todd, you can talk about this. On the way down to Panama, it failed on us, so we hand steered for 5-6 days, which is wearing. But yeah, we had an autopilot, and that is the greatest invention ever, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
I can see, did we experience any seasickness? Yes, I did.
Talk about that.
And my daughter Brinley did, mostly just through the first day and night. There was one passage going from the Marquesas to the Tuamotus that I thought I had seasickness. It turns out I had some sort of a virus. Hard to tell the two apart, but after the first day I was like, I'm not bouncing back. I'm not on my feet. So it turns out I had some sort of a virus.
But seasickness, every time we went on a passage, you and Brinley and
sometimes Caitlin.
It was pretty predictable that some people were going to just be down for a day, and that was actually one of the nice things about our watch schedule. Like I said, we were typically down for 3 hours, so you could double that. I could do a 6-hour watch, and that was not a killer. So could the other ones, the other girls,
And I usually could do my watch being seasick, because you just have to kind of sit up, navigate everything for a solid 5 minutes, and then you could lay back down for 10 minutes and set your timer again.
Yeah. But
So
then after a day,
you're
guys were
back
all
to normal.
fine,
Yeah.
and you had your sea legs, and it was done.
Yep.
Very manageable.
Yep. Oh, thanks for sharing. Someone said thanks for sharing. What are your meal plan strategy? That's a great question. You do make a meal plan. A lot of pasta, sandwiches. I had a bread maker on board. That was really nice to have. A super nice thing, because I bought pretty much 9 months worth of peanut butter and jelly in Panama, because you can find anything in Panama. And then with that bread maker on board, we at least had sandwiches, your basic sandwiches. And I know that sounds very silly, but peanut butter and jelly can get you anywhere. I also used peanut butter sometimes to trade.
Yeah.
And I also peanut butter and jelly to trade, because I had plenty of it to trade. And sometimes we went and did like massive big bonfires with a lot of people. The peanut butter and jelly fed the kids. So I had plenty of that always to spare. So there was that. So I kind of basically planned about 8 basic meals with pasta, some meals with chicken, and a couple of other things, like some basic things like the snarlers, like he said, like with sausages, and because you can find a lot of sausages along the way. Shipwreck stew was a big thing that we had often.
Terrible name.
I know. I couldn't make it anywhere close to land, is what Chris would always say. So those basic meals, sometimes I could find the ingredients and sometimes I couldn't. And the fruits and the vegetables, it was always whatever I could find. Sometimes I could find plenty of carrots and sometimes I could find none. Sometimes I could find apples. Sometimes I could find none. So it was just kind of a hit and miss. We also caught fish. Sometimes we didn't.
We
So
stocked up on a lot of canned goods in Panama,
mhm,
so we drew on that quite a bit. But we were never in danger of running out of food. And everywhere we went, the locals, come eat with us, and here's a bunch
Yeah.
of food to take. And as boaters, we were always trading and swapping and sharing.
Yeah.
And whatever.
yeah.
It-
So hopefully
it's
that-
probably good to mention to those who don't know what the boat looked like that you had a refrigerator, a freezer, a
Yeah.
stove, an oven.
And
Yeah.
we had a
Big
ton of
oven.
storage underneath everybody's bed. So that's where all the canned goods went. So I just had to flip up mattresses and flip up the whole thing to grab out like canned to make drinks and stuff. So if we ran out of water and had to purify some, we had Gatorade mixes. And then we did buy an extra freezer, one of those plug-in freezers,
Portable ones.
portable freezers, and so that helped us on those longer passages. But like your basics like cereal and milk that we're so used to in America, that was no longer. We ate oatmeal and pancakes for dinner or breakfast. That was very much a staple. Because cereal was a no-no. Waffles, there's no waffle maker in sight. Toasters, that's a no-no. There's no place, I mean, that'll really hurt your generator to put toast in once you leave, at least once we left Panama. We had a toaster, but once we left Panama, it just wasn't anywhere to really plug that in. Microwavable food. You couldn't plug in that microwave anymore. Start that microwave. That was too hard on the generator once we left Panama. Before it was fine because we could plug in to shore power, but after that it was
Well, if we'd had a more robust battery bank, we could have done more of these things that she's mentioned. But I mean, we experimented with an Instapot. We experimented with
I
a
did
rice
have
cooker,
I did have a rice cooker and that was not so hard, but
a bread
otherwise
maker,
and the bread maker, yeah.
and Jen insisted on a soda stream machine.
I insisted on the soda stream machine. Yes. And then yes, I did have I called it my little bake oven. Like, the little girls, but no, it really was this cute little oven, and it could cook at least a casserole size 9x13 something.
Yeah.
And my stove, we definitely used the stove probably more than any other cooking element was that stove. For pasta and just for stews and soups and just everything. So I probably belabor that point, but
The freezer was key, though. You're right, Mel. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up.
because you could freeze all that meat that you bought.
And fish and whatever. Yeah.
hmm
Mm.
So should we take any other questions? It's probably a wrap.
Things, the COVID sitch has kind of shut down a lot of countries right now. But as I look at it, this is the great time to start prepping, and if this is a trip that you're interested in, you can do it. I promise you there's a way to do it. And just take in the next couple years, 2-3 years, and figure out all the details, of your life. And love to have more conversations about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got the barking dog here.
The question is, when is the next installment? Is that the next installment of when we're leaving the country, or when is the next time we're going to speak? I'm not sure what the question is. I think the next installment, Todd, when?
We're happy to do more.
Yeah.
This was just a little slice of the trip. Yeah.
Love to have you guys back anytime. There's so much to cover here. Let's keep that open-ended, and if you're game, we learn so much every time you guys speak and share. We'll just keep it open-ended if you don't mind.
Sure.
Sounds great.
Great
Sounds
question.
great.
All right.
Okay. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julian. Thanks, Chris and Jen. Appreciate you. And the girls. And thanks to Chasing Stars. I know this was probably hard for you to revisit this. I know that you're still island folk. Part of you is still back there. So it's hard, but it's also very special that you would share this time with us. I know it was a privilege for me to be on your boat just down to the Panama. And I remember that time very fondly too. And I wish I was back there. So thank you for sharing. And I guess we'll sign off now, and thank you everyone who participated. We appreciate it. And Mike Harmer has agreed to share his BVI experiences with us next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. And I look forward to that too. BVI's is a great place to start your blue water adventures and your knowledge. So we look forward to that, and we'll be sending more out in the next newsletter. So stay tuned, stay posted, and this is fun. Always fun to get together with sailing folk. So good night, and until we meet again, yeah, reefer down and keep your lookout. Good night, guys. Aloha.
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 Don't you like waiting and seeing who the last person on is?
I'm not clicking until you do.
I'm just gonna keep waiting. I was actually hoping Ori would stay on. I was gonna say hi to him.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Russell.
Hey.
You're on. Been a long time.
Good to see you.
Yeah. I hope I see
But
you guys out on the water.
I missed your first time you gave your
Ah,
account, so I'm glad to get on this time.
yeah. Yeah. Great.
Well, we have more to say. Tons more.
Hey, thanks, Mikkel.
Yeah.
Good luck on classes.
You did great, Nicole.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right.
Okay, fine. I'll end it.
Hang on, don't anybody close it off.
Okay.
I've got to get a number from someone.
Actually,
Stuart, I will, or Brent Stewart. Okay, hang on. I'm going to text you right now, but don't close it out because I got to put in his number. It took me. Okay, I will text you.
Now are we excused?
Yes, I got the number, so I now I'm good. We can close it out.
I guess they made us the host, so
Yeah.
well, I'll just keep it on till they lose.
Hey, Stuart, turn your camera or your unmute. Or Stuart's your last name, right? There we
Stuart,
are.
my last name. Brent, his first name.
That's right. I couldn't think what you were talking about, but yeah, you
We
took. a
We
sale from me.
We have not used it when we
Oh.
haven't been back out to where we can use it. So, but we still are planning that. Jeff Welch and I are planning the Washington 360 because the R2AK is not happening again this year. They've substituted that. So Jeff and I are going to be up in Puget Sound, sailing around Puget Sound, hopefully using
Oh.
that sail this summer. And who knows, maybe we'll launch onto some other grander adventure.
Oh, that
Thank you
sounds
very much. That was very
fabulous.
fun. So anyway, every time I get with Jeff, I say, man, we owe somebody some money for some sail, and I don't know if I have her number anymore. So it was.
I had forgotten all about it, so you could have just gotten away with it. We still can, but
It hasn't been out of the bag since. So
well, don't feel like you have to. I mean, I gave that to you to try and but I'll text you, and so then we can be in communication about it.
all right. Hey, thank you. And I'm going to sign off, but thank you, Julian's. That was a very fun, very inspiring. And I did ask the question that didn't get answered, but I'm curious.
Oh, let's hear the question.
Uh-oh.
Well, you mentioned, and I think part of your financing this adventure was buying the boat, and the plan was always to sell the boat
Mhm.
after.
Yeah.
How did you come out on that piece of the financing? Were you able to sell it for as much as you bought it for?
Pretty close. Not
Not as
not quite as well as we hoped. We'd heard stories about people buying cheap in America and actually making a profit
in Australia.
in Australia or New Zealand. We got a decent price for our boat. I think it becomes sort of a game of if you keep it on the market long enough, you might get your price versus just getting rid of it, so you're not paying the maintenance fees, the slip fees, to keep it in wherever. And there are some tax issues depending on whether you enter into Australia or New Zealand.
And recession issues in those countries that you have no control over,
Sure.
Right.
depending on timing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we did okay, enough that
Mhm.
close enough to that it was worked out close enough.
We were power boat owners back years ago, and we just had a runabout, and people always talk about how much money boats cost. And
Yeah.
we had the boat for 10 years and sold it for $1,000 less than we bought it for. So the
Yeah.
cost, it was a used boat. So, I mean, if you bought a new boat, it probably wouldn't be, but somebody else took the depreciation. I had a boat that cost $100 a year, and, then insurance was $200 or $300. And after that, it was gas. So I think, after it was all said and done, it's a pretty thrifty hobby. It's
Yeah.
a lot less than golf and green fees, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, I think that can be the case. We bought ours used, and it was pretty well outfitted for blue water already, so we didn't have to do a ton to it. So that was nice. So
What
Yeah.
model can
it
you
was a
tell?
Leopard 46.
Okay.
They discontinued that model anymore, but it's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
And we saw several others along our way, that same model. And that was nice because we could learn something from them and how they were doing things on
Yeah.
that.
even slightly different models, we saw several of, and they were close enough that we could
Compare.
have that conversation. What's wrong with your boat? What's wrong with your boat? Let's talk boat fixes endlessly.
Always.
Always, always.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to sign off.
Hey, sounds
Yay.
good. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm stopping the recording. Boom.
Thanks. Hey, Mel.
Yeah.